The Pantsula dance, the name Pantsula means water like a duck, like duck. So the name comes from there, and then we take that water like a duck and put it in the form of expression like a dance.
It's a storyteller itself. It doesn't need a person to tell a story using it. It's a storyteller.
When you dance Pantsula, you are free. Even if you're having some stress, what happened at home, in your township, but if you start to dance Pantsula, you'll be free, man.
It is a challenging dance. It's not an easy dance to do.
It was a dance that was created in the apartheid era.
It started in Sophia Town in Joburg in 1950s and 1960s, and around 1980s it spread around South Africa.
People that I've seen telling a story through Pantsula are black people telling their own stories.
Yes, that history of where South Africans came from.
Our grandparents used to tell a story by moving, you understand? As I told you, I studied traditional dance, so we tell the story with traditional dance, then we become more energetic, then it explodes.
We're using our voice to create music, we're using a footwork, we're using hands, and we're also using props to dance with cans, marimba dance, we all combine them.
The emotions. There's a lot of emotions, and you use a lot of your hands, your legs.
When we use our footwork, you use like, hey, you see, when we use this is footwork, this is the footwork, this is the footwork.
I will play with my hands, a chop. Now I will play with my face and my body. You see.
We as a youth, we want to take the step to another level by saying that we as a youth, we don't engage to drugs and to teenage pregnancy. By saying that, we engage ourselves with the Pantsula dance. It expresses the energy in some of us. As you see, the Pantsula dance is an energetic dance.
If you have energy, you can dance Pantsula. If you don't have energy, you can't dance Pantsula.
It's a dance that can make you feel more vibe and also feel more confident, alive.
I dance because of my passion, man. I love it, you understand? I love dancing, and dancing makes me alive, man.
I love Pantsula because it's a way of expressing the way I feel.
And the trumpets, they go. And the trumpets, they go. Yeah, the trumpets, they go.
Well, nothing says more South African culture than the Pantsula dance. And this is a last-minute announcement to say that your ticket to lunch this afternoon is being able to bust at least one Pantsula move, hopefully. Otherwise, you're going to be hungry for quite a while. I'm just teasing. A very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kathy Mutlatlana. It's a pleasure for me to be part of your program this morning and moderate this first session to kick us off for the summit that we're entering into. I don't need to tell anybody in this room about the power of technology and what it has done to bring us together as people from different parts of the world. COVID-19 over the last 2.5 years has really helped us explore the fullness of what technology can do for our lives when we're trapped in our homes and literally can't go anywhere. In fact, it's been amazing to see how different workplaces are now embracing a hybrid model of working. Something that before COVID, you would have had to fight, depending on the kind of culture in your workplace, to work from home. And today, it is accepted as a norm. Of course, part of what technology has also done is that it's played a crucial role in helping us see things at the same time. Just 2 weeks ago, we had close on 4 billion people globally. And I want you to think about what that means. 4 billion people in different parts of the world that all tuned in across different platforms to watch the funeral service of the British Queen Elizabeth II. While some may have tuned in to see, what will Meghan Markle be wearing? Will she be allowed into the funeral? The debate on the continent quickly became outrage. Thousands expressed fury, and it was about how African leaders were being discriminated against following pictures that emerged of leaders that were in shuttles, standing, some not able to get a seat as they were being bussed into the funeral. What a great debate and outrage it was. Of course, the record shows us that even when we, as South Africa, were burying our late statesman, Nelson Mandela, we had heads of state from different parts of the world also put into shuttles and made their way to Gonu. That's the historical record. So in fact, there was no discrimination. But the power of what I'm talking about here is that these conversations are happening real time. All of us have unprecedented access to things that we didn't before. And that's why the work that is done by all of the stakeholders in this room is so important. Every component of what you do brings us closer to a more inclusive world. And it's part of the reason why the summit will gather over the next 2 days. Is to assess the state of the industry, identify some of the pressing challenges, and most importantly, pave a way forward. And in our world, we can't talk about a way forward that doesn't guarantee access, that doesn't guarantee inclusion, equitability, and a sustainable future. The Digital Council, of course, which is hosting us, is an independent, not-for-profit organization, and it seeks to dialogue with stakeholders like yourselves to discuss how to maximize the social benefits of digital and data-driven technologies. Let me begin by acknowledging some of our esteemed guests that are part of this conference. The Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technology in South Africa, Philima Pulani, Deputy Minister Kundo Andrea Matthew, Ministry of Information, Communication and in Tanzania, Mr. Magabongwe Sidziba, Director Corporate Governance of ICT, DPSA, Mr. Lasina Konate, who is the Director of Digital Technology, of Digital Economy and Telecommunications, the Minister of Digital Economy, Telecommunications and Innovation, Cote d'Ivoire, Ms. Doreen Bogdan Martin, who is the Director, Telecommunications Development Bureau, ITU, Mr. Goran Marbi, the President and the CEO of ICANN, Mr. Eddie Kayihura, the CEO of Afrinic, the National Construction Authority, Kenya, Mr. Daniel Kitiu, the Standards Officer of the Kenya Bureau of Standards, Dr. Ngaba, the President of the Digital Council Africa, Ms. Juanita Clark, the Chief Executive Officer of Digital Council, all of the Board of Directors of the Digital Council Africa, the Board of Directors of the Fiber Council Global Alliance Delegation, industry leadership and colleagues, and most importantly, a special mention to all of the sponsors of this summit. And this is the Digital Africa Member Conext Conference. Thank you all for coming on board to make this event the success that it will be. I know that we have many people that have traveled from far and wide to come and be part of this conference, and we're certainly hosting it in what is one of the most beautiful cities of South Africa, and I trust that the country has been good to you so far. All of our speaker bios will be available on the website, and in the interest of time, I will not be reading out those bios, but you can go onto the website, that's connextconference.africa, to have a view of what exactly it is the history of our speakers is. With that said, let's get straight into our first speaker of the day to officially kick the conference off for us. Let me invite Doreen Bogdan Martin, who is with the International Telecommunications Union and will also be joining us virtually for her address. You can give a round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be part of the Digital Council Conext Conference 2022 and to have the chance to share my thoughts with you on Africa's digital development. This year's focus on digital infrastructure is extremely pertinent to addressing this vast continent's chronic connectivity challenges and to propelling Africa forward into a prosperous new digital future. The good news is that the demand for connectivity here in Africa has never been greater. The continent is getting connected. More and more individuals are coming online, and Africa's business sector understands extremely well the vital importance of fast, reliable broadband. ITU figures show that in the short period between 2019 and 2021, internet use in Africa jumped by a remarkable 23%. That's enormously encouraging to someone like me whose role is all about finding more effective strategies to connect the unconnected. But while the news around connectivity is good, let's remember that the percentage of individuals using the internet in Africa is still only 33%. That means fewer than 1/3 of Africans have access to the internet, and a staggering 740 million remain offline. Rapidly scaling up and accelerating the rollout of digital infrastructure, particularly in hard-to-reach regions, is a vital first step in getting everyone connected. Right now, the mobile coverage gap remains most significant here in Africa, where despite a 21% increase in 4G coverage since 2020, 18% of the population remains out of reach of a mobile network. Another 11% are still struggling with 2G coverage. In a continent as vast as Africa, where so many people still live in village communities, that means almost 30% of the rural population still has no mobile broadband coverage whatsoever. And getting them that coverage is absolutely essential to ensuring that they can participate as equals in today's increasingly digital world. Of course, Africa's connectivity issues go beyond mere network access. Affordability is critical, as is empowering people with the digital skills that enable them to make meaningful use of that access. And that's why ITU's development arm has a range of programs and actions that are geared to helping our members implement people-centric strategies that actually leverage the power of connectivity to transform lives, communities, and economies. First, let me start with our ITU flagship digital development event, the 4-yearly World Telecommunications Development Conference that was just held for the first time in the African continent this past June. The conference outcome, the Kigali Declaration and Action Plan, chart a path forward in leveraging digital for development, including an agreed set of initiatives specifically for the African region, with a big focus on implementation and expansion of broadband infrastructure, connectivity, and emerging technologies. We also held our Partner to Connect Digital Development Roundtable during that conference. It was the UN's first pledging conference for connectivity, and we've already exceeded even our most optimistic estimates, raising almost $27 billion to date, of which over $8 billion of that has been pledged towards Africa. I am convinced that this overwhelming global response and recognition demonstrates a renewed commitment on the part of ICT leaders around the world to work together to promote better access to affordable, resilient, and trustworthy connectivity for people everywhere. Because ultimately, a connected planet benefits everyone. Achieving a world where everyone everywhere has ready access to the affordable, reliable connectivity they need to realize their ambitions and reach their potential is a formidable challenge. No one can solve this alone, and that's why we need to come together across sectors and silos to expand our efforts to leverage one another's strengths and expertise and share in the rewards. As Nelson Mandela so famously said, it always seems impossible until it's done. All eyes are on Africa as the next big global growth market, but with digital now at the heart of everything, expanding connectivity and bridging the digital divide will be key to unlocking the immense potential that exists right across the continent. And let's not forget the immense potential of youth on the continent that is home to the world's youngest population. I'm confident that by working together, we can help ensure that every African gets the chance, not merely to participate in the digital world, but to join the global conversation as creators, as shapers, and leaders of the digital future. The whole world stands to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Doreen. Up next, I'm going to invite the president of the Digital Council Africa, and that's Dr. Andile Ngaba.
Thank you very much, Kathy. We really appreciate for your time and being part of this event for today and tomorrow. Deputy Minister Philima Pulane, thank you again. You always support our initiatives. And thank you for being with us this morning and today. I also want to thank the Deputy Minister from Tanzania for coming all the way, and also the Director for Corporate and ICT and Mr. Lesina Konate, really for coming all the way from Cote d'Ivoire and being with us here. And also we have an opportunity to have Koran maybe president of ICANN also who will address us, and also the CEO of Afrinic. We have delegations from Kenya, from West Africa, Nigeria, from Cote d'Ivoire, from DRC, and many countries. We also have delegations from other partner organizations from Asia. Thank you, colleagues, from Europe, from North America. Thank you again. Various FTTH Council members who really have traveled all the way. We really appreciate your presence. To the board of Digital Council, thank you very much, colleagues, and the CEO and all those who have put this event together. We really appreciate your support. To all the members who really have continuously supported our work, we appreciate what really you have done. Now, what I'll talk about is we all have been in this environment in the last 2 years of COVID. I'll cover a couple of issues and thank people who really have participated in contributing in various countries to make sure that the world must remain connected as we were going through COVID. I'll talk about some of the environment that we see in the world today and also in our region, the continent, and the processes leading to World Radio Conference next year, and why really we must continue to build the metaverse. Now, one of the most critical aspects that one would like to raise is the fact that we last met in 2019, and we all know that the last 2 years we all have engaged digitally. And I just want, again, on behalf of the community in South Africa, in the region, for really, making sure that, schools must continue, even if young kids were not able to go to school. Again, we all saw what COVID has almost demonstrated is that gap of those who are unconnected. We still have a big responsibility, colleagues, all right? COVID-19 has given us a lot of lessons as to how to better improve our work as an industry. Now, talking a little bit about the global environment. Your screens are not working in front of me, Sipo. Talking about the global environment a bit, I think Doreen talked about Partner to Connect and the fact that in Kigali we raised about 27 billion. The world, between now and 2030, we need $428 billion to connect the 2 billion people unconnected. And of that, 100 billion is needed in the African continent. And all this investment, if we want to achieve, for instance, the 2030 SDG targets, we need to invest, we need to build fiber, long-haul, metro fiber, access fiber. You are the people responsible for this. And therefore, we would like to say to everybody here, our task, our mission to connect the unconnected will still remain. Doreen and a number of other people are in Bucharest, starting from yesterday. The ITU Plenary Conference has started, and we wish all of those who are participating in that event well, and a number of our colleagues are there. I also want to highlight again another major global activity called GIGA. GIGA is about connecting all schools in the world. We are really proud that in the continent we are very active in this UNICEF and ITU project. Of mapping all schools. This project started, as one of the Broadband Commission and UNICEF project to say, how do we address the gap of unconnected schools in the world? So, I mean, it's a project that I would really like to suggest that please follow what is happening within GIGA and see how you can participate in addressing school connectivity in your area, in your town, in your country, basically. And GIGA has developed some NFTs, which you will find them in Patchwork Kingdoms. And again, as a way of encouraging the next generation involved in blockchain, involved in different types of new products and coins to make sure that we can be able to sell what we call connectivity credits using NFTs. Now, one of the other biggest challenges that we are experiencing in our industry is supply chain and semiconductor challenges. The fact that it takes even longer these days to be able to receive some of the equipment you need. These are the type of challenges we are experiencing as an industry. The OEMs take a bit longer, 5G is taking a bit longer, people are waiting for kit to deploy because of challenges that the world is experiencing today. Again, colleagues, we're all witnessing inflation that has never been experienced in many parts of the world. So we are actually trading in quite challenging times, but we need resilience in the industry. We really want to encourage, collaboration, working together as we traverse these challenges of today. Again, I mean, we have seen during COVID, I mean, the rise of cybersecurity, I mean, the fact that, ransomware attacks and almost how dark web has almost emerged in a manner that has never been seen before. We have to collaborate together to fight against this. This is something that is holding back our industry and is affecting almost every sector of the economy. You are the people who can contribute and participate in solving these challenges. The other aspect that we are confronting as an industry is this issue of data. I mean, some countries are beginning to move into something pre-World Trade Organization of most favored nations. So we really are arguing strongly around the issue of collaboration. I mean, the internet was built to be an open platform, and we need to approach this territory much more in a very careful way. And we talk to authorities in our region and governments that the way they deal with data policies, they must make sure that they don't slow down the industry, they don't actually hinder growth, they don't hinder cloud, and they don't hinder, the development of the next generation as we want to get into metaverse. There has been, I'm sure you're aware of the developments around the Budapest Convention, the debate around new standards and protocols around fighting cybersecurity, and crime, rather. And this is something that is truly affecting everybody, and we ask the industry members to participate in addressing these issues. Once you get attacked on your own, you are unable to share what your experiences are, we will not be able to fight this issue. So as a country, as a region, we want to encourage, for instance, a number of countries in the continent to be signatories in the Budapest Convention, because it is through this participation that we can collaborate globally and our role as a continent, as an industry, in the fight against cybercrime. The internet has always been an open system, and that is why, as an industry today, we embrace open radio access network, we embrace the discussions that are taking place between the Linux Foundation, GSMA, between the ITU, and various institutions that are discussing the next generation or the road to 6G, or how we move into connecting, for instance, the next 50 billion things. It is through that collaboration, colleagues, that we can be able to look at interoperability issues of standards and how, as a community, we can be able to work together. So as the Digital Council, we are very active in all these bodies and all these international institutions on your behalf to make sure that as a country, as an industry, as a continent, we can be able to understand where things are going and not be left behind. The debate around blockchain and interoperability between various blockchain communities, whether it is Algorand or Ether or Bitcoin, we are again active to encourage that collaboration, because Web3 can only happen if blockchain communities are able to collaborate, including talking to us as an industry. As you might have seen, some of the developments where, the whole new Wi-Fi or 6G Wi-Fi, if you want, or 5G Wi-Fi, a lot of people are developing products that are blockchain-based at access level, meaning that the device that you would use as an access point would actually, you can pay using different types of currencies, including crypto, including NFTs. This is where our industry is going, and we need to be able, as the tech sector, work together with the blockchain community in order to make sure that as we move into Web3, into metaverse, we can be able to allow payment in different forms by our users. I mean, a lot of work is happening. What we are trying to suggest, Deputy Minister, is to sandbox the whole infrastructure policy for metaverse. And we are looking at, putting this together in 2023, starting the process that is leading up to 6G debate and the spectrums in the terahertz range, and how this is going to impact the development of the industry. Unless we test these, we will actually be able, so that we can be able to introduce them as early as possible. While we need to address, colleagues, on one side, the digital divide, but we can't hold back the industry in advancing and competing and be able to participate in all the areas that are taking place today in the world. Coming back to our region, or various regions of the world, we are engaged with colleagues in Europe. GIX, CISP. We have an MOU as the Digital Council with CISP Europe in discussing issues of how, for instance, Europe is developing around issues of data, issues of data centers, how they deal with the issues I have raised earlier of transparency, openness, fairness in the way connectivity is developed, and how, for instance, issues of sovereignty are dealt with. We have seen a number of debates taking place, in particular as last week, and there are some differences. We believe, as an industry, talking to each other is the only way to go, rather than opting for courts and fights, basically, between either OTT players and infrastructure players. We suggest and support a collaborative approach. Again, there are developments taking place in Asia-Pac that we monitor and see in software development, in various activities, which we are talking to, because we cannot operate as an island, as the continent. We need to engage other parts of the world. Again, we are happy that colleagues from Asia are here, from Europe are here, and North America, basically. In Africa, we've seen quite a number of submarine cables that have been launched and are continuing to be launched. Last year, launched this year. We welcome those, and these are huge investments, and we believe that they are going to contribute in advancing what Doreen was talking about. We have seen the launch of To Africa in West Africa, basically earlier this year in May, and right up to Cape Town just last month. And we also are looking at Peace in East Africa, and ACE that was launched again, brought down to Southern Africa sometime last year. We congratulate those colleagues who are here. We have really continued to invest in subsea capacity to drive the growth in the African continent. However, we still need to build the capillary part of Africa, i.e. long-haul fiber, metro fiber, access fiber, and your role, colleagues, is more necessary. We can't have a funnel where we have terabits in the ocean, and then we have gigabits and megabits at access and metro level. And the only way we can do that is to invest in metro, is to invest in long-haul fiber, is to invest in data center to data center fiber in the African continent. So these are some of the things that we need. Let me congratulate everybody and thank again Juanita and the people in the presidency here in South Africa for achieving this extremely very important, I would say, draft policy. Thank you very much to the department, and thanks to everybody. I think they really need a big hand of applause. This is something, colleagues, that will change our industry. I mean, South Africa has 257 municipalities. In the past, colleagues, to get way leaves, you have to almost approach each municipality that would have a different approach. With this standard model, we will use one system, one standard, one approach. And this is really a breakthrough for the industry and speed to market and the ability for you, colleagues, to deploy. We will continue as the Digital Council to make sure that we are working on your behalf to engage authorities in every aspect that affects you. That is the role of the Digital Council. Spectrum, we have seen what has happened in the spectrum earlier. I mean, it's something we encourage. Deputy Minister, thank you again to the department for this. Again, we are aware that the Reserve Bank is working with a number of institutions in bringing together what we call CBDCs, and this is something we encourage. We are very active with, again, the central bank, or in both West Africa, in Nigeria, in Southern Africa, in encouraging a number of central banks in the continent to adopt CBDCs. We have to be active, colleagues, I mean, in processes leading to World Radio conferences. Members are very active in the preparatory committee for WRC 2023. Please continue to be active because this is an extremely very important event. Similarly, from 2023 leading up to 2027. I just want to, again, as I sit down, to thank all the exhibitors and sponsors really for being part of this event as we come out of COVID. Again, I want to thank members of the Digital Council. Please, those of you still to join, we encourage you to meet with us and join and be a member. Our role is to represent your interest in engaging government, in engaging authorities, and also to facilitate and make sure that the industry is able to collaborate. I just want to again thank all the board members here, the CEO and management of the Digital Council to make sure that this event, it is what it is. We again want to thank local and global partners really for coming and joining us, the ICC staff and management, government deputy minister. We appreciate your presence here, and the ICT and all of you colleagues and members of the media. Thank you again for supporting this initiative. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dr. Ngaba, for that comprehensive global outlook on the state of the sector, and most importantly, what the future can look like if some of the gaps that you've identified are filled. On that note, let me move on to the next item on the agenda and invite the Deputy Minister for Communications and Digital Technologies in South Africa, and that is Phili Mapulane. I feel like some of you are shy with that round of applause. You can just go for it, right?
Thank you very much, Program Director Kathy Mutlatlana. I feel so intimidated speaking after Dr. Ngaba, who took us through the industry from a global perspective up to here at home. But I must say thank you very much, the President of the Digital Council Africa, Dr. Ngaba, together with the CEO, Junita Clark. Let me also recognize the Deputy Minister of Information Communication from Tanzania, Deputy Minister Kundo Andrew Matthew. Let me also recognize the DDGs from the department who are supporting us. We've got 2 DDGs present in our midst. That shows how important we take this conference from the department. We left, all of us are here, we left our offices to come and be with you and interact with you together with the other officials from the ministry and the department. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to thank Digital Council Africa for the invitation to come and share with you some of the work that you are doing in the department and our policy perspectives on a range of issues that you are grappling with in the ICT sector. I must say that as a village boy, as somebody who grew up in the village and later in the township, I feel truly welcomed by the Panzula dance that just took place here. I myself used to participate in this dance, and when they were dancing, I felt like joining in, jumping onto the stage and joining the Panzula dance, because that's who we are. Welcome to Mzansi. That's how we do our things. And thank you very much to the organizers for that. So the Digital Council Conext Conference 2022 Digital Infrastructure Summit takes place 2 days after the commencement of the International Telecommunication Union Plenipotentiary Conference 2022, which is taking place in Bucharest in Romania. It started on Monday, the 26th of September. It's a marathon conference. It's going to end on the 14th of October, 2022. As you know, that this conference, the Plenipotentiary Conference, it's a preeminent, highest policy-making body of the ITU, which is a specialized agency for information and communications technology of the United Nations. The PP22, just like this conference, has the ability to influence and affect the development of information and communication technologies within SADC, AU, and indeed globally. I am told by the colleagues in the department that Dr. Ngaba, who used to be the DG in the department, and all the DGs that followed him, played a key role in ensuring that South Africa continues to be an influential member of the ITU. Actually, in the African continent, we are the only country that has got a permanent presence in Geneva, who's full-time dedicated to the ITU. That's how important we take the ITU work, and it's through the work of the officials, the predecessors, Dr. Ngaba and all of the DGs that followed. Currently, the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Minister Nchaveni, is currently leading a team of senior officials from the department. They are attending this conference because they have to participate in some of the important discussions taking place in Bucharest, because there are also important decisions to be made. This conference, which takes place after every 4 years, is going to elect the office bearers, the Secretary General, the Deputy, and the directors of the 3 bureaus. I am told that Junita, your CEO here, had a fruitful and meaningful engagement with the officials in the department, and I'm told that there was an interesting presentation that was made in preparation for ourselves as the department representing the country to go and participate in that conference. And as I join you today, representing the department and indeed the voice of government on ICT, I'm certain that you will be enriched by the illuminating voices of government, industry, and regulators over the next 2 days of this conference. Undoubtedly, all of these voices will and must appreciate that the rapid development of digital technologies, which has come to be characterized as the 4th Industrial Revolution, has imposed a duty that theirs will have to be voices that are sensitive to global trends from around the world, as they will be focusing on the issues related to fiber, towers, 5G, data centers, and cloud. As most of you will know, that I served at the behest and carried the mandate of the ruling party, the African National Congress, which in our recent successful national policy conference in June of this year in Nasrec, delegates expressed their concerns around the question of market consolidation and monopolies. Our research indicates that globally the telecommunications infrastructure space consists of 3 or 4 big players. We are seriously concerned about the dominance of few players and the highest prices of mobile data. We again wish to reiterate a call that mobile data must continue to fall. We are only calling on data to fall, especially for educational purposes of learners, for the hospitals, for the police station, and for South Africans in general. We are supported in this belief by the recent 2020 Competition Commission report on the Data Services Market Inquiry, which concluded that mobile data costs are high, and it made recommendations to reduce the high and structurally anti-poor pricing for mobile data. We believe that the settlements will show mobile network providers reducing their prepaid data prices substantially, including introducing a zero-rated access on public benefit and essential government websites, lifeline data, and increased pricing transparency must be felt out by all South Africans. It is only in this way that South Africans can feel that this intervention has improved their access and lowered their cost of communication. Because without access to the internet, South Africans won't be able to participate in this exciting digital economy that we are participating in. We are also following ongoing online intermediation platforms market inquiry, which includes e-commerce marketplaces with a keen interest. You will recall that ICASA had finalized its inquiry into mobile broadband services competition and call termination regulations. I have been informed that MTN has initiated an application in the High Court seeking to review the Mobile Broadband Services Regulation of 2021 and is challenging issues related to, among others, mobile retail services, site infrastructure access, and national roaming services. Telkom has also initiated a High Court review application targeting certain of the propositions adopted by ICASA in its findings document on the review of the 2014 pro-competitive remedies imposed on licenses in terms of call termination regulation 2014. I have been informed that Telkom is particularly aggrieved by ICASA's determination to remove rate asymmetry for existing operators and to limit asymmetry benefits to 3 years from market entry for new entrants offering voice termination services. Of course, this is the nature of our constitutional democracy and public administrative justice principles, where those affected by decisions of public bodies have the right to seek recourse in our court. And this is what makes South Africa a very exciting democracy, that all of us have got rights, and if we feel that our rights are being affected, we have got the opportunity to litigate, to approach the courts to resolve. So as government, we will wait for the resolution of this dispute through the court processes, because this is the nature of the litigious communication digital technology sector and market. We know that we are being accused as government for delaying the auctioning of spectrum, but if you'll recall that there's been litigation after litigation which delayed the ultimate allocation of spectrum through through auction. So it was because of the continuous litigation that this sector, I'm told, because I've joined it very recently, I'm told is known for being litigious. But of course, there's the South African society as we know it. But I'm encouraged by what Dr. Ngaba was saying, that we encourage resolving matters out of court. And I think this is something that we've always been saying. If there are disputes between the industry and government or other public bodies, it's important that we must always sit around the table and resolve our issues. This is how we negotiated democracy in this country. All the contending parties found a way onto the table, negotiated through CODESA, through the multi-party negotiating forum, until we arrive at the point where we say, this is our draft constitution, let's go and have elections. So in a similar vein, I think there has to be continuous engagement in the sector with government. We hope that the deployment of the new high-speed deep-sea cable, which is called the Equiano, which I was honored to observe the launch, which was taking place here in Cape Town by Google South Africa in a partnership with Telkom OpenServe, and the allocation of spectrum by the regulator will significantly contribute to the decrease in the cost of data. However, there are skeptics out there who believe that the jury is still out because of claims that the cost of load shedding is one of the elements that is forcing operators, especially recently, to increase their wholesale and retail prices of mobile data. So as we thought that data is coming down, data prices, now we've recently observed that the costs are continuing to increase, mainly because of the claims that it's because of load shedding. Dr. Ngaba spoke about the bylaw. Now, I want to share with you some of the developments that has been taking place. With regard to the rapid deployment of electronic communications facilities, you'll recall that the presidency established Operation Vulindlela in October of 2020 as a joint initiative of the presidency and National Treasury to accelerate the implementation of structural reforms. A focus of the initiative is reducing the cost to communicate and improving the quality of digital communications through, among other things, the auctioning of high-demand spectrum, the completion of the broadcasting digital migration process, and the switching off of analog transmission, the finalization of the rapid deployment policy and streamlining of the process for wayleave approvals, connecting South Africa by rolling out broadband infrastructure across the country. With regard to the rapid deployment of digital infrastructure and the streamlining of wayleaves approval, I am happy to announce, and I thought that you are not aware, but Dr. Ngaba has taken that away. I'm happy to announce that following the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between our department and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, COGTA, in July of 2020, the Minister for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, has published the standard draft bylaws for the deployment of electronic communications and facilities for public comment on the 19th of September 2022, with the submissions due on the 28th of October of this year. As a department, we worked very closely with COGTA in producing the standard bylaws, which industry has been calling for. We made very significant inputs into that document. I remember in my first encounter, after we were appointed in August of last year, I attended a Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, SITSA of 2021, which was held at the Sandton Convention Center. I was in a panel, a high-level panel discussion with Dr. Ngaba, and I remember he spoke with a lot of passion about the impediments that this industry is encountering with municipalities, where you are subjected to different and often very tedious application processes for rolling out of fiber and other digital infrastructure. And so this draft bylaw is a very welcome development, because what it will do, it will standardize all the application processes, as Dr. Ngaba was saying. So we are calling on you as industry, we are encouraging you to make your submissions, make your comments on how we can better shape this draft bylaw. You still have until the 28th of October to do that. Now, having infrastructure program director and access to cheap mobile data will not serve much purpose if the citizens do not have the capacity and skills to exploit data towards the development of tradable goods and services. So the issue of digital skills becomes of utmost importance. Digital skills therefore remains a critical intervention in enabling the majority of citizens to participate in the digital economy. I therefore call upon the ICT industry not only to support our digital skills initiative, but also to pursue additional initiatives to expand digital skills across South Africa, especially in indigenous communities. You can do so by providing bursaries, establishing academies, or sponsoring digital skills programs in our schooling system. This will not only strengthen our country's digital skills to innovate and participate in the digital economy, but will also support government's goals of reducing poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Last year, I was invited by Telkom to be part of their conference, which is called SATNEC, where through their initiative, the Center of Excellence, they are sponsoring a number of postgraduate students in ICT at master's, at doctoral level. So they annually convene a conference where these students come and present papers, their research, and all of that. So I was particularly impressed about the initiative that Telkom is doing of establishing the Center of Excellence, of allocating resources so that we can contribute towards the skills development, because the nature of work is changing. We require a new set of skills, and so as industry, we must also invest in the skills development. Program Director, let me just quickly talk about the draft white paper that we are busy with on audio and audiovisual content policy framework, a new vision for South Africa, which seeks to address the availability of relevant services and content in a world where there is an abundance of local content available in the country, with video on demand being extremely popular. We know that MultiChoice offers Showmax and DSTV now. ETV has OpenView HD. And the country's public broadcaster, the SABC, is launching its own video-on-demand platform. Walt Disney is launching Disney Plus in the South African market, which will include Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic, which targets mature audiences. So South Africa has a wealth of global content available. Therefore, there is a huge role for digital in the attention economy, where the OTTs are reigning supreme, and there is space for collaborative efforts by industry and a fair and balanced parity-inspired regulatory policy framework. However, we are aware of the unfair competition in the market, especially by the global OTT players, and we are working on the appropriate policy intervention to address this gap. Program Director, to improve connectivity in South Africa, we had commenced with broadband connectivity program. Most of you will know it, called SA Connect. This program ensures the rollout of ICT infrastructure across the country to ensure that all South Africans have access to the internet by 2024. This will ensure that our people are connected to access online services. We have also agreed with our telecommunications mobile operators as part of their social obligations arising from the spectrum auction to assist the country. And in this regard, they have committed to spend approximately $1.3 billion in social obligations to connect public schools, health facilities, clinics, public libraries, government centers, and tribal authorities by June of 2025. In order to further enhance our broadband connectivity reach, South Africa is at an advanced planning stage towards launching its own geocommunication satellite through our signal distribution company, which is Centec, in partnership with the South African National Space Agency and other relevant key stakeholders, bearing in mind that South Africa has 7 submarine cable systems with a total design capacity exceeding 70 terabytes per second. The latest addition to this deep sea submarine fiber cables was the Google Equiano cable, which brings almost double the capacity that was there, which brings about 144 terabytes per second, which was launched recently in Melbourne. Ladies and gentlemen, as you might be aware, The Department of Communications and Digital Technology has published the draft data and cloud policy for public comments, which I would like to quickly unpack for you. After going through the inputs and analysis, we are now working on finalizing a draft cloud computing policy for South African government. The intention is to finalize this policy by the 30th of June, in line with the Minister's Performance Agreement with the President. The purpose of this policy is to facilitate cloud adoption across government, outline governance requirements relating thereto, and articulate government expectations in respect of cloud services providers. The aim of the policy is to universalize cloud adoption across all government departments to achieve total digital transformation at all levels of government. We seek through this policy to regularize government cloud computing, to drive digital transformation in government, support government's socio-economic objectives towards building a robust digital economy while ensuring capacity enablement, compliance with data security, privacy requirement, as well as cost optimization. This policy will be applicable to all government departments, national, provincial, and state-owned companies. The global economy has and is moving towards digitization and digitalization at an unprecedented pace. This has put tremendous pressure on governments in developing countries to urgently prioritize digital transformation. Although one can talk about countless benefits of digital transformation, there should be an understanding that it is a challenge in developing countries burdened by diverse needs, and in some instances, the need to address historical imbalances. Where priorities of different communities and societies in our country are at different levels of economic participation and therefore diverse developmental needs. After ICASA proceeded with spectrum auctioning to ease the spectrum capacity concerns of the mobile and other sectors, we are also moving forward with spectrum policy, which we have released for public comment so that we can release more spectrum into the market. We would like to see government actions being reciprocated by the sector in terms of infrastructure investment and reducing the cost to communicate. Now, we are being told regularly that infrastructure investment in rural areas does not make economic sense. This is something that we are told, especially by the sector. As you know, you invest a lot in the cities, particularly around the rollout of fiber. It doesn't go to the rural areas. But when you visit most of our rural communities, you see a lot of sprawling malls and shopping centers, people building their own mansions all over the place, lots of economic activities, full of cars, and it's busy in the rural communities. So you can see that other industries, other businesses do recognize the buying power of these communities. But the digital sector does not and continues to be hesitant to invest in rural infrastructure. Yes, there are other instances where constraints exist in terms of rapid deployment of infrastructure, and as we have just announced that we are working on it through, among other things, the draft bylaws, the rapid deployment policy that we have issued. But there are other areas in the rural communities where ICT, digital infrastructure can be rapidly deployed. And so we are encouraging the industry to also look at that. I'm sure that you'll see a lot of benefit in investing in that. And so to be able to derive value out of data, we should realize that there are enablers in this regard. And as it is with our global counterparts, we acknowledge our responsibility to develop policies, strategies, and legislative enablers. That is why South Africa was one of the few countries to implement the Malabo Convention by introducing the Protection of Personal Information Act. This was in recognition that the processing, mainly collection, analyzing, usage, and sharing of information should also accord certain rights to the data subjects, meaning the citizens, be it in the country and or in other jurisdictions. This is in recognition of the constitutional rights of citizens to privacy. Government has also enacted the Cyber Crimes Act 19 of 2020, designed to ensure prosecutorial enablement for cybercrime, to ensure that cyber crimes can be prosecuted. As you will be aware, one of the impediments to embrace digitization is the fear of some of our citizens that online transactions can enable the fraudsters to criminally access their funds, which is more of a myth out there. But of course, it's something that we must be alive to it, that our citizens are not able to participate in the digital economy because of fear of cyber crimes. So the Cyber Crimes Act was enacted as an additional measure, and the Strengthening of Electronic and Communications and Transaction Act, number 25 of 2002. Now, digitization and digitalization in an environment supported by data free flow is an ideal for every country that seeks to build a strong economy. We are, however, also aware that data flow, if not managed properly, can also be harmful. We have seen instances where digital manipulation has determined the outcomes of elections in some countries. We're just talking about an interesting development. Dr. Ngaba was telling us about the cyber horse that begins to play themselves out in the social media space, in Twitter. Some of us have got experiences of how some of the elections were, the outcomes of the elections came about. For instance, when the Trump administration came in, and the role that social media has played, and the peddling of fake news in the social media space, which is some of the challenges that we're beginning to experience as we see the advancement of digital adoption, most and more people getting online. We are also noticing how even in the free market economies, like the USA, there is more demand for accountability from multinationals handling massive volumes of citizens' data. These multinationals also operate in South Africa. So where our policies are enacted to provide certain data protection, our concerns should not be seen separately from the concerns of their countries of origin. We have seen how cybercrime can bring the operations of some departments and business organizations to a complete standstill. Any cautious steps that we take in this regard should therefore never be regarded as threatening the business environment, but rather to protect our sovereignty and the rights of our citizens. Multinationals and even local companies should see our policy and legislation as seeking to balance the promotion of citizens' interest in creating a supportive business environment. And therefore, as we engage, it is important to seek reciprocal solutions that do not push the winner takes all, but rather seek a give and take arrangement that we plan to work on tirelessly until it provides maximum benefit for both sides. In conclusion, I'm sure you are happy to hear that I'm concluding. We are happy that every now and then the sector, and we must thank the Digital Council Africa, creates avenues for dialogue that seeks to frankly confront our challenges and seek collective solution. We do appreciate your recognition that this engagement also need us as a government, as the policy maker, to come and give inputs, and we're also always available to engage with you as a listening government. I would like to take this opportunity to wish you fruitful deliberations and a successful conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Deputy Minister Phili Mapulane. I also noted how you carefully skirted around the issue of that spectrum. You know, you were like, it's in court, let's not deal with it now, which of course is not unexpected. We're going to continue with our program, and up next, I think, is a really important aspect of this conversation. Earlier, Doreen was talking about the opportunity that Africa presents as a continent. And we know that one of the biggest socioeconomic issues that we deal with is unemployment, especially unemployment of young people who make up the majority of the population on this continent. A group that does really incredible work in this space is Harambee. Evan Jones is the Chief Strategy Officer for Harambee, and he's going to be joining us to tell us a bit more about the organization and what they do. Evan?
Excellent. Well, thank you, Program Director. Thank you to the President of the Digital Council. Good morning, Deputy Minister, and to all other government dignitaries. I think just in the interest of time, all protocol observed. We've heard the subject of inclusion and digital divide several times this morning, and you know, we really can't have a conversation about inclusion or digital divide without having a conversation about skills. You know, in Harambee, we like to start off with the problem statements in mind, and I think as South Africans, we all have a deep appreciation for the unemployment crisis in South Africa, which is sitting at roughly 34%. But the figure that might shock you more is that youth unemployment is sitting at 70%. I'll say that again. Ages 18 to 35, youth unemployment is sitting at roughly 70%. That is about 7 million unemployed youth in the country of South Africa. More so, there are other challenges. We have about 1 million young people entering the job market each year, 2/3 of whom are not finding their way into any kind of education, employment, or training. We call these youth the NEETs. We also operate in a slow growth economy with young people who are locked out and have barriers such as transport, as we heard, barriers such as data costs, as we heard, and these barriers are particularly difficult, as we've seen in our data, for women. There is a tremendous amount of investment going into education in South Africa. We estimate about 81 billion per annum, and we are seeing low rates of return in terms of youth absorption into the economy. But with that, there is absolutely opportunity, and we heard from the Deputy Minister this morning, we've heard about Project Vulindlela. There's absolutely a heightened awareness around the subject of youth unemployment in South Africa. Civil society, private sector, public sector are leaning into this, and it's really a moment for us to start to think about how we address it. And I'm proud to say we've been working with Digital Council very actively over the last 16 months on a range of projects, such as the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, also involved in the Wayleaves process. There is an absolute opportunity, as you saw from that video, through a national asset that we've built together with the Presidency and many partners, such as Youth Employment Service around SA Youth, to provide the many millions of youth free access to job opportunities and learning opportunities, and that is the platform that is SA Youth. You can learn more about it at the Expo. But even in a low-growth economy, there are parts of our economy that are absolutely thriving and growing, and this is one of the reasons we've got a partnership with Digital Council. One is in the area of digital jobs, which I'm here to speak to you about today, but as you roll out your fiber, as you roll out your networks, these unlock jobs such as installation jobs, splicing jobs. And so really, how do we lean into these parts of the economy and think about how we unlock these opportunities for excluded and marginalized youth? So I'm here to talk about the digital job opportunity, which I think is phenomenal. And what I will say is we have a digital jobs crisis in South Africa, a crisis in South Africa. We have been working over the last 24 months with various partners, industry associations, including the Digital Council, and we've mobilized an initiative called the Digital Work Accelerator, which is essentially a coordinated national initiative to accelerate and scale skilling models for current jobs in the economy, but also for future jobs. We spoke about blockchain, Web 3.0. Those future jobs are critical that we think about as well. But critically, I spoke to somebody last night at the cocktail function. They require high complexity digital skills that are work ready. And so work ready is an imperative word when it comes to these high complexity digital skills. Just to talk about the Digital Skills Challenge in South Africa. So we've surveyed over 100 organizations in 16 sectors. We can see today, just in South Africa, 60,000 vacancies for software developers, data analysts, software testers, and that is for today's economy, let alone future skills. We have analyzed the supply side from tertiary institutions all the way to digital skills academies, to TVETs, and today our system in South Africa for these future digital skills is producing roughly 20,000. So what South Africa needs to do is we need to almost triple the throughput of digital skills. And we heard from the Deputy Minister around supporting digital skills initiatives, and I couldn't agree more. We have a digital skills crisis. We are not producing enough. So the pool is small, and producing work-ready talent is taking time, it is expensive, and we are not getting there. So the Digital Work Accelerator really looks to bring private sector, public sector together around the table to say, how do we build new innovative skilling models? Because we have to think differently. There's also a significant lack of capacity. And this is having serious implications on business, as I'm sure all of you are experiencing. Increasing labor costs, can't find the talent. We're seeing global organizations take our talent, brain drain, and so forth. So we have to come together as a group of leaders in South Africa and really think about how do we mobilize a coordinated multi-sector initiative to really scale digital skills in South Africa. So that is the exam question a whole group of us are tackling together with the Digital Council. And again, you can learn more about it in the expo. But I could talk about national plans and data at length for hours. But there's no better way to actually talk about the subject than bringing it to life. And I'm so privileged to be joined today, this morning, by Inga. And Inga has walked this role of job seeking and the unemployment challenge in South Africa for a number of years. More recently, she's been in a skilling innovation that we've been piloting around work readiness and work integrated learning models here just in Cape Town. And she has a phenomenal story to share with you. So welcome, Inga.
Thank you.
So, Inga, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, thanks.
Did you ever think in your career you would be sitting here in front of a few hundred people
Never.
at Cape Town Convention Center?
Not at all.
Well, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure. So, Inga, I think just to start off with, if you could share with our colleagues here today just a bit about your background and your family.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Inga. I'm from Kayelichai in a small area called Harare. So I come from a family of 4. Have 2 sisters. I'm the middle child. I grew up with my father. My mother passed away when we were still young due to kidney failure. So he was the sole provider for all 3 of us. I finished my matric in due time because I always had that idea that my father is raising me. Back in my community, like you can see that most people that are same age as me, like there's no future. When you come back from school, you see people like sitting outside drinking alcohol from Monday to Friday. Peers my same age, like drinking alcohol, indulging in drugs and all that. So I made sure that I stay focused until I meet my dreams. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. And so perhaps just share with us a little bit about your learning journey and looking for work and some of the barriers you faced over the many years. I think you said you were looking for work since 2018.
Exactly. So when I finished matric, I did systems development certificate, got my systems development certificate, ICT enabler certificate. After that, I tried looking for work because I thought that was enough, to kickstart my career. Little did I know that there's an experience, 3 to 5 years experience that's needed in order for you to actually find an actual job. So that is where I felt the pressure, like financially, family responsibility, and like not knowing how to kickstart my career, like, the anxiety of sitting at home, not knowing what you will get your next data to apply for this job, because remember, you also need data to apply, first of all, and you also need transport money to go out there, find these workplaces, organizations to apply. So that was really stressful. So yeah, that was it. I was very depressed, because remember, I needed to make my father proud. He was the sole provider for us. I had that idea that I have to make it. So not finding anything while I tried to study, to get the certificates, it was so discouraging.
So you said a few key things that I just want to recap for everyone, which is you were faced with the barrier of corporate saying they require 3 to 5 years prior work experience despite your studies. Secondly, even whilst looking for work, you were faced with the barrier of requiring data even just to apply online for work. And even in those instances where you had to go drop off your CV, you had to come up with the finances and the funding to get into the cities to apply for work, and that was challenging for many years. So now let's talk about like learning and transitioning into, I know you're in a work integrated learning academy here, and you did a few learnerships
Yes.
in leading into, I know you're in this academy called DigiLink. So let's talk about that transition for a minute.
Yeah, so a friend of mine told me about capacity. So there we upskilled on various technologies like Java's programming languages, Java, JavaScript, web development, and all that. Then we were so lucky that DigiLink selected us to be part of their candidates to study, to upskill on test automation. So when I got at DigiLink, the first 6 weeks, we upskilled on AWS, test automation. They put us through all these courses in order to be fit enough for like the client they had for us after those upskilling weeks. We wrote our ISTQB certificate. Then after 3 months, we got great news that we would partner with BMW, do test automation that side. We're so happy to do it, to hear that. Yeah, we were so happy. Then after some time, I finally realized that, listen, this is an experience that I've always wanted, because now I get to work, I get to like experience the real industry experience. Like I get to work with people who are in the industry that I want to be on. So this is the experience that I've always been looking for. And thanks to DigiLink, they made that possible for us.
Fantastic. So again, you said some important things there. So what DigiLink as a work-integrated learning model has done creatively, so notice we haven't spoken about tertiary degrees, we've spoken about very innovative work-integrated learning models. BMW, as a large corporate, has really partnered with this work-integrated learning academy and has provided real technical digital work that expose young candidates such as Inga to obtain that work experience and overcome that barrier that Inga was faced with for so many years. And so you managed to get that work into, and by the way, Inga's very casually throwing around like QCTB and these certifications. These are some of the most sought after certifications in the world. I mean, if you've got these certifications, you can literally work anywhere in the world. So I know you got some good news this week.
Yes.
This week. So share with us the good news this week.
So this week we got a call from one of our mentors at BMW. We finally signed a contract with BMW, so we'll be starting in November. Yeah.
So let's take this further. Is this a learnership or is this employment?
This is employment.
Full-time.
Full-time employment.
So for those of you that don't know what this sort of job family is that Inga's going into, it's software testing and software automation, which is incredibly high complexity work. The sort of salary bands that we're talking about in this sort of job family range anywhere between 18,000 Rand to 22,500 Rand per month. And so that is what Inga's career trajectory now really looks like. So let's understand that kind of transition for you into employment and what that means for you and what it actually means for your family.
So when I told my dad the news, he couldn't believe it. He asked me to say it again. And I told him, Dad, I finally signed a contract with BMW. I could hear him crying over the phone. Because like since when we were young, like he always wanted he's a sole father, like to 3 daughters. We are all females, and his wife left him when we were still young. So he had to grow us into these big women that we are now. And like him hearing the news that one of his daughters is finally gonna work with a big company like BMW, I think that was a dream come true to him. So that means a lot. That means a lot because now I wouldn't even have to bother him asking for like data. Now I would have to like play my part in the family, you know. Yeah, and also my younger sibling, he wouldn't have to worry about like she's gonna start with varsity soon, so she's not gonna worry about varsity fees, you know, and all that. Like now I got her, I know.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's
Amazing.
lovely.
Congratulations. I also know you did something else for the first time. So when you went to go get your certification, tell us about that.
So when we partnered with BMW, their offices, the ZA Hub offices are at Menlyn and Midrand. So we were supposed to go there to fetch our working like laptops and all that. So they told us that we're gonna fly, and it was my first time flying. And I got so excited again. I told my father, Dad, I'm flying to Joburg. So yeah, that was an experience for me. First time experience.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we're closing out. I mean, these interviews just go so quickly. Now you have a room full of deputy ministers, businessmen, leaders, captains of industry. If you can wave a magic wand and tell them to do anything in terms of digital jobs, what would that be?
I'll tell them that please give us a chance as a youth. I mean, we have the skills. Like telling a young person like me, like a 22-year-old, that you need to get 3 to 5 years experience. Where am I going to get that experience if you don't give me a chance? Like, we just need you guys to give us a chance. We have the skills, trust us. And you wouldn't even be helping me alone. My family, my community, you'll be like improving a lot of people's like lives. Not only me, but everyone. So, thank you.
Well, Inga, just like that, we're out of time. Just thank you so much for gracing us with your story. I think it's just been just wonderful to hear it, and I'm sure all the delegates here have learned a lot from you. I think you've inspired many today. And just keep flying that flag. We're behind you every step of the way. Keep climbing in your career, and just keep proving everybody wrong and making the success of your life and your career. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I think just in closing, we've spoken about digital divide, as I said, we've spoken about inclusion, and I hope we've really brought the subject of inclusion to life. There is such a tremendous opportunity for the South African economy around digital jobs. It's one of the few parts of the economy that does not have a job demand problem. We have to address and innovate on the supply side. And if we can do that, there are many tens of thousands of opportunities for people like Inga. We are so proud of our partnership with the Digital Council, which we've had for the last 16 months, who have been such advocates of this conversation. We have done several things. We've worked together to try and break down barriers of issues of access and device refurbishment for communities such as where Inga comes from. We have worked together to drive diversity, equity, and inclusion, and gender inclusion in amazing ways. And Digital Council has really pushed SA youth and driven inclusion and partnered with us. In fact, BMW was a client that was actually introduced by Digital Council. And lastly, we've partnered together to mobilize a national program called the Digital Work Accelerator, which I know we've presented to many members before, but it is really, really mobilizing and such exciting things that we'll be announcing over the next kind of 6 months around how we're going to scale tens of thousands of skilling, new innovative skilling models to enable people like Inga. So thank you for the platform and thank you for the time, and I hope you all have a wonderful conference.
Thank you so much for that, Evan, and really for showing us what's possible in a country like South Africa. Inga, we wish you all of the best for the future. Let's give her just one last round of applause. What a phenomenal young lady you are, and we're expecting big things from you in the future. So you're seeing a lot of movement happen around me now. I'm going to hand back over to Dr. Ngaba to announce what this part of our program is about.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we are signing again further agreements and with Harambee. I mean, you have seen what Harambee is doing amongst young people, and really we have been working very well in the last, almost just over a year, and we have an agreement that we really want for you to witness here as a continued relationship and partnership. Again, thanks to you and your colleagues for all the work you are doing. And we really believe in digital skills. And then this is more a commitment agreement to engage and find areas of collaboration to develop the digital economy, and whilst doing so, grow and develop opportunities for youth and employment, Deputy Minister. So we really are very happy that you came. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President.
Yeah. Thank you. More resources are getting into youth, so we encourage you as the industry, as companies, to participate in the program. We really appreciate your support. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there's a picture here. Please. Please. Yes, we need you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And we're looking forward to all else that will come out of this partnership that is taking place with Harambee. I certainly know that we have so many young people that benefit from a zero-rated service like the one that Harambee has been able to initiate. And so we certainly look forward to more of those types of initiatives. On that note, I know it's been a jam-packed morning so far. Everybody looks like they're ready for just a quick break, which is what we'll do. We'll take a tea adjournment and we'll be back in the auditorium at midday. So 12 o'clock, and I promise this time we won't be late, and we'll continue with the rest of our session for the day. those that are still hovering around the back, I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds to try and rush back into the plenary hall as we continue then with the second part of our session for today. Of course, just before we head into lunch, I know we had a nice extended break, but we'll be eating again soon. This is part of the beauty of a country like South Africa. If you're not being offered tea or food, just know that your visit does not count. You'll have to come back again. So coming up next, we are then going to still continue with the themes around the state of the industry and most importantly, what the future looks like. You can expect a discussion that will focus on inclusion in the technology sector. And our first half really emphasized the need for inclusion, why inclusion must be part of the conversation. And in a country as unequal as South Africa is, many of you might know this, but South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. So the conversation around inclusion, particularly in a context like ours, is even more important. It's the only way that we can ensure everybody is brought along and everybody is given the opportunity to be part of that success. Without wasting any further time, I'm going to invite onto the stage Eric Kaihura, who is the CEO of Afrinic. Let's give him a round of applause. Good morning, Eric. Oh, good afternoon. It's now afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much. I'd like to just correct, my name is Eddie, but I have a lot of friends that are called Eric, so it kind of creates the same. And in terms of inclusion, these are differences in different places. My name is Eddie Kaihura. I actually am a citizen from Rwanda, but living in Mauritius. And today, I'd like to speak to you about Afrinic and a perspective on the digital growth in Africa. I came via Kenya to arrive in South Africa, and yet we have direct flight from Mauritius to South Africa. So this is a sign that COVID is really passing away. The planes were full. I could not find a plane, direct flight. I had to go on the other side. So we're glad that at least we can meet again, discuss again. And part of this tea break and so on are things that we never used to have when we have our meetings online. And we're so glad to be together again face to face. Allow me to start with two short stories. When you're at the age of Inga, finishing or starting your career, you'd need to have, you have plans and dreams and you think of how you're going to have your first house. But for that, some of you would go for an apartment, some of you would go for a land. But if you really want to build your dream house, you need to have your own land. And today, in the digital world, I've actually seen that now people are even thinking of buying virtual cars and virtual houses. I don't know how it works, but in the digital land, the way where I stop, we need IP addresses for us to be able to build our digital solutions. And this is where Afrinic and all the other registries come in, because we believe that the numbers are what you need for you to start a hospital, a school, a business, any digital service. And when you go on digital, the first past digits is numbers. And the second story that I'd like you to keep as we go on, because this is where I'd like you to think for those who are in the digital space. Imagine some of you have teenager kids who are now starting to learn to drive. And if your son or daughter borrows your vehicle and goes to hang around with friends, and if it happens to be that these friends are not the right type of friends for your child, and they go rob a bank with your car, guess where the police would go? They'll come to your place. So it's very important that you take care of your assets, or the assets that are under your custody, for you to be safe, and it's part of the safety online. These stories will make sense when I go on, and you'll see where I go. So we'll talk about the internet ecosystem, Afrinic and its services, the IPv6, which is the new land that we now have where there's enough space because the previous one is kind of depleted. And then we'll also discuss about a call for action. The internet ecosystem, I have to admit, is wide, and I don't have the expertise to explain to you all the different building blocks. But it has been defined as a multi-stakeholder environment where you have different stakeholders that are collaborating and are sharing their knowledge, their expertise from all across all the type of knowledges. So you have the open standard development team, you have the naming and addressing with freely accessible processes for policy development. That is where the registry falls, if you look at the third bullet. You also have ICANN, IANA, and so on. You have the local, national, regional, and global policy developments that are done with governments, and we are glad that even in this space we have different stakeholders that are involved. Then you have the users, education, capacity building, and today here we have also a lot of infrastructure builders without which this digital world will not be a reality. I'd like to thank Digital Council for this invitation, being part of this, because we are all part of this global world, and each one of us brings its own ingredient to make sure that this sauce makes a sweet dish. And part of the history of Afrinic actually also started here in South Africa. And I'm very glad to be here, because if you see this evolution of the system, it started in 1981 with a central registry. Then eventually in 1992, that's when RIPE NCC, the first registry for Europe, was created, followed by the one for Asia Pacific. And in 1997, ERIN, which was the central registry, was also in America. ERIN was born in 1997, LACNIC in 2002, and Afrinic in 2005. And part of the pioneers of the registry system of the internet were different communities and different people. And we also have Dr. Ngaba as one of the pioneers here in South Africa, together with Alan Barrett and other pioneers of the internet. And the South African government, together with other governments like Ghana, Egypt, and have collaborated to make sure that this continent is also having its own registry. This is the picture of the RIS system before Afrinic was created. You can see that the southern part of the hemisphere was connected to ARIN, so people in South Africa up to DRC over there would go get resources. By resources, I mean IP address, ASNs from ARIN. The topmost will go to Europe, and the Indian Ocean was part of the Epinic region. It had its own issues where you don't have the same type of problems. When you're coming, let's say, from Angola and you go to have discussion of policies in America, you're not on the same level. You're not on the same type of issues, same problematics. So it was very important that Afrinic get created, and it was the case in 2004 or 2005. On this map, when you see 2.8% for Africa, some people start wondering, why is it so? The way IP addresses are shared or distributed goes from a need-based allocation. If you need, you come and express your needs and get the resources. But this is distribution over IPv4, which is currently the most used internet protocol. But you will see that there is another protocol where we expect most of you to grow. How are IP addresses managed? There's a central pool that is managed by IANA, which allocates to the different registries, of which Afrinic is one of them. And then Afrinic and the other registries will allocate to local internet registries or the ISPs, who then assign it to the end user or the end customer. Now, here I stop again and come back to my analogy about the land. When you are planning to have digital services, and all of us here have somehow space, you could have your shop in a building that you rent. You could have the retail shop in the building that you rent. But when you want to have your core factory where you build a lot of infrastructure, sometimes it makes sense to actually go and acquire a land that is going to be for you. And it simplifies a lot of things. That's where the way we're looking at different growth in the digital space, some people just rent a domain name, because here I need to specify, because sometimes people make a mistake to connect names and numbers. Afrinic, we're only looking at the numbers, only the numbers. Then you also have the names, community, which are domain names, the CCTLD, I think it's Zadna that is managing the .za. But those two work together, same as on your phone and your phone book, where you need numbers that you cannot cram, but you also need names that you can remember all the time and be able to use to be able to navigate online. Now, depending on your type of business, some people need to have their own space. In the past, it used to be only ISPs that would do that. And here in South Africa, you're actually the biggest customer for us, with more than 600 resource members out of 2,000. It used to be only ISPs, but more and more we are seeing radio stations, we are seeing data centers, people who are building solutions and they want to be independent. They don't have to necessarily go and have the resources that their providers are giving. You can come to us, provided you have a reason and you are going to start a digital business, and we will allocate resources to you. What is the challenge? IPv4, that has been widely used, I'm sure you know the 192.168, is actually almost over. On this picture, you can see that 3 of the registries are empty. The stock is empty. Afrinic still have a portion, and Epinic also has a portion, but it's not the end of the world, because there is another technology or another protocol that is available, but it also has its own challenges. On this slide, we're discussing about in the technical community. Afrinic is part of the technical community, and we have multiple other organizations that are collaborating, working together for us to be able to support our ecosystem, and mainly in Africa. We have Afrinic for the numbers, Africa CERT for the security, because it's very important for us to be safe online. I have a friend who has decided he's not going to use internet banking on his phone because there are thieves. But I also want to challenge this type of person, because eventually, and COVID proved that so, eventually you cannot not use digital means to go there. Otherwise you say, I'll not go to the shop because there are thieves on the street. It doesn't add up. So the same thing that happens in the digital world, in the real world, will have to happen in digital world. And somehow security is very important to mitigate the different risks. AFREN, I'd like to say that in South Africa, the REN, the Research and Education Network, is quite developed, which is not the situation in many other countries on the continent. A lot of countries are still trying to find how to build them. We have the AFPIF for interconnection and other organizations. So who are we at Afrinic? At Afrinic, we are the registry for Africa, and our vision is to have a secure and accessible internet for sustainable digital growth in Africa. And here, we're also talking of the Digital Council or the digital activities, which shows that we can all participate, we can all collaborate, and be able to build together a brighter future for our people. Our mission is to serve the African internet community by delivering efficient services in a global multi-stakeholder environment. Global multi-stakeholder environment is where we operate, but our specific focus for now is mainly in Africa, and I'd like, again, as I said before, to appreciate the invitation to be part of this event, where I am very impacted. apart from the dance, the story of Inga was one of those that you start remembering that part of what we do really do impact lives and generations in the future. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So who are we at a glance? We are a not-for-profit organization based in Mauritius, a membership-based. I'd like to pause here to say, because we're membership-based, we are actually yours. Because the IP address, it's an interesting concept. Someone asked, who's the owner of the IP address? It's not us. We are just the one managing it. And who decides on the policies that we use? It's actually you. And I'd like to stop here again to say, when we speak about multi-stakeholder, the best example now, this chair is not very nice, but if you look at the other chair, multi-stakeholder means you have multiple other stakeholders. But when you realize that one or two of the stakeholders are missing, we are no longer in balance. And this is mainly the main reason why I came here, because we need you. The users have their space, the telco have their space, the data centers have their space. And when we are deciding about policies and discussion about how we are going to run these resources, we don't impose. We are there to follow what our community is asking, but when our community is busy doing its business, I know. You are not, provided you've got your land, you don't want to be in the discussion about how do we deal with other lands. But I'd like to invite you to be attentive to what is happening, because some of the policies that are taken, or the decisions that are taken, are applicable to you. And you have resources. And I generally tease Mauritian in Mauritius. It's as if us foreigners are sitting in the parliament of Mauritius and making decisions on how Mauritians are going to eat. So it doesn't make sense if we decide, and whatever we decide, let's say they love a lot of chili. If we decide no more chili in the country, then the restaurant have to apply no chili, which is important for you as you do your business, to keep an eye on what is happening at Afrinic, what is happening so that you're sure it's still going in the right direction. We have our headquarters in Mauritius, as I said. We have multiple data centers, 2 of them in South Africa. Thank you again for your support, and I hope the load shedding will also be fixed soon. And we also have 1 data center in Kenya, but I have to admit, we have never faced a downtime in the data centers in South Africa, and we have very good support from the team here. Thank you so much. And we're serving more than 56 economies. As I said, 2,100 members, of which more than 600 are in South Africa, 48 staff, and we manage the pool of V4, V6, and ASN. So these are some of the statistics that are there. Yes. Now, part of the services, the 2 first services that are there are related to the story of your child going with his friends, or maybe the friends themselves, because they borrowed your child's car and they go rob a bank. Eventually, the police come to you. So internet has started easy. It was family business. It was group of friends, making sure everything connects. But as days advance, there is security flaws that have appeared, because it was based on a lot of trust. And at this time, it's very important that on top of the other security mechanism that you put in your network, you also work on routing security. And this is one of the features that is currently available at Afrinic, but we are seeing a slow uptake from our resource members, which we want to encourage you, even as customers at the time, to insist to see that this security is done. The impact would be if someone hijacked a portion of your network, advertise it from another place, they can attack, let's say, attack the FBI. Eventually, they will see your IP address attacking them. And eventually, they'll come to you, thinking it's you, and yet it is someone else who hijacked your route because you didn't put a padlock at your door. And this padlock is just a configuration mechanism. We are there to support on that and be able to build this solution and safety environment for all of us. We also support the intra-area transfers, where some resource members go to different, when you acquire different companies or buy other companies here in Africa, you can have this. There has been a discussion on transfer outside of the region, and this has been not yet approved by the community. If you're interested, you are free to come and make your voice heard, because, as we said, our place is very open. When we speak about the future, when you see IoT, all this new development and so on, you realize that we cannot continue to squeeze on a small land. And as you saw, Africa, we only got 2.8, less than 3%. The new technology is out there, IPv6, but some people say, why break something that is working? Or why come and disturb something that's breaking? There may not be an immediate economic incentive, but when you think about the possibilities of the future, when you think about where the entire world is going, why is it that Africa will continue to stay behind? IPv6 is available for multiple years now. Some countries are now putting even IPv6 first deployment of networks, like in America. And I do believe that you here, as a pioneer or a large user base, it's very important that you show the way and get to use IPv6 and deploy IPv6. As Afrinic, we provide a lot of support for that. Not only do we give training, but we also do e-deployathon, where we have different engineers on a Zoom link. You know, the Zoom, you can have multiple rooms. So we have different operators together as it's a 4-day workshop where we assist operators or different networks to implement milestone of IPv6. You start gradually, but you continue to increase until we get to where it is. This map is not very good today, because as you can see, different parts of the world have already started to embrace IPv6, and we're still lagging behind. And I know it is not that complicated. So it's very important. In the past, some of the gears that were in people's network were not IPv6 ready, but by now everything is already ready, and I just want to reiterate the call to get IPv6 enabled in South Africa, and maybe let's have the South there turning green. And I know that we also have delegates from different countries. This is for all of us to make sure that Africa is not behind in terms of the new land that has a very vast space. Recommendation, for those who've not yet got IPv4, please come and get some, because the stock is getting empty very quickly. For those who have, because I know some of you have IPv6, please enable it on your network. For those who have not yet got IPv6, start the project before it's too late. Start the project without having to rush. We are there to support. And you can learn as you deploy. We have free material that's online. You can start step by step, and we have a line where we can reach out to us, and we'll support you building that. Here, I'll also touch on the RPKI, which is the security around the routes. It's one of the layers of the security that is required for you to continue to provide services without being hijacked. And the last one, engage with us. As I said, we are yours. We are part of you. We are here to listen, to collaborate, and even to go around activities that you think are going to be important for your business. This is what we believe as a not-for-profit and neutral organization. There are some of the advocacy that we could do because you have advised us, and make sure that the cake continues to grow. How you can take part in Afrinic activities? You can become a member. You can attend our meetings. Some of you are resource member. You can elect different committees, different working group, even board members. And apart from electing, you can volunteer too, because as we said, it is a part where the industry is not well represented, and we think if you could also come and advise us on how to evolve. We have mailing lists But we've come to realize that mailing lists are not the only way to communicate, because I think we are seeing some generational change where people used to only communicate on mailing lists. Now people prefer to go on different other channels like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and so on, and we'll just serve our customers where they feel the best. Sponsors, I will not say much about that. You know what it means. And partners. We thank again the Digital Council for the hand of partnership that you've extended to us, for your support, and for giving us this opportunity where I'm sure when I go out from Cape Town, I'll be a better person. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Eddie, and also for exposing our well-kept secrets in this country. Of course, I know some of you, especially those who are not from South Africa or the region, you have no idea what load shedding is because you have not experienced it, and long may it last. Do not listen to the naysayers. I must say, during your presentation, I realized how little I know about the industry. Just this past week, I had to do an interview with the CEO of a company who was talking about how they're using blockchain to buy digital property and vehicles, as you were saying earlier in your presentation. And one of the things I kept asking, so in the end, what do you actually own? And what role does all of this serve? I'm not sure I quite understand it yet, but your presentation has helped bring me a step closer to what it may be. On that note, let me invite George Mendes, who is going to be taking us through our panel discussion for this morning. And it'll be focusing on the inclusion, the conversation around inclusion in the technology sector. And of course, George, I'll allow you to introduce your delegates for this session.
Yes, so good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Is it working? There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll be talking about inclusion in the technology sector. And I've got three amazing ladies, the flowers and one thorn to moderate the discussion. And that will be me. I look after the consumer business for Vodacom in South Africa. It is a topic that's very close to my heart, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I think first and foremost, let me get the panel up on board. In no particular order, but let's start with Juanita, the CEO of Digital Council Africa, if you wouldn't mind joining me. You can clap if you feel like it. I think it would be appropriate. We have Veronica, that's the MD of Smart Digital, so please join me as well. And Koliwe as well, the VP and Country Director for Software AG, if you wouldn't mind joining. So I think we go straight into it, if it's okay. We're going to keep the conversation, obviously, very engaging, and hopefully we'll answer some of the questions. But I would like to start with, at Vodacom, we've now achieved a 50-50 male-female gender ratio when it comes to the Vodacom South Africa Exco, and it's been something we've been working on for a while. And Juanita, maybe I'll start with you. What do you think are the top issues then in terms of gender equality in the workplace?
Well, I personally think it's that there's men in the boardroom. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. It's such a sensitive topic, you know. Sometimes you just got to make a little bit of light, you know, of it. I think for me as a woman, I think there's a couple of things. I think one of the things is, I think the pay gap, you know, that's a thing that women very often talk about, you know. We work like really, really hardcore, as hard as many men, and I think, you know, stats show that women still earn for exactly the same job 25% less than their male counterparts. So, you know, for me personally, that is something that, you know, I think if I could, like, you know, rectify some of the conversations out there and some of the narratives, then I think, you know, that is certainly one of them. You know, the general discrimination. And I think often people don't understand the narrative behind it. You know, what people need to understand is that if I work as hard as my male counterpart, but I'm not earning the same, it sends a strong message that I'm not worth as much, or my value that I bring to a sector or a society is less than somebody else that stands next to me, you know, that's doing potentially the same thing. So, so I would choose that one for the sake of time. I mean, there's a lot of issues that still face women in the workforce today, but for me, that's one that stands out just because of the messaging that comes with this pay gap that we still face.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think super valid point and something that certainly does need to be addressed and need corrective action quite soon, to be honest. Kuliwe, maybe I can come to you and say, why do you think it's important in making sure that gender concerns in particular are taken into account when we do program design and implementation? What would your thoughts be on that?
No, thanks, Josh. I think you can hear me clearly. I think what I want to start is the context of gender in this particular discussion, you know, talking about what it really means. It's aspects of economic, social, you know, and cultural attributes rather than the biological form. And the need for social inclusion, and I will be specific to women here, the need for inclusion in the workspace to ensure that we are leveling the playing field. And also talk about the three layers of gender equity, gender equality, as well as empowerment, and why we really need to ensure that we do have gender equity in the workspace to monitor and implement those programs and policies that are going to drive the equality and thus empowerment, because we all know that in the workspace, if that is not the direct focus and there are no programs that are set by organizations, it's mostly women who are impacted in terms of the gender equality. So we have to address those imbalances. Juanita talked about aspects of, you know, pay salary gaps in the workspace that we need to address. So it has got to be a conscious effort and in the leadership to address those programs that are communicated at strategic level. You are mentioning 50-50 presentation, and I'm not sure it was through planning and putting the programs in place to ensure that we are going to have women representation, not just in managerial positions, but at decision-making positions that are really strategic, especially in the tech sector. We don't want only to be in the soft spaces, but in the core areas where we actually make decisions that are critical. I was reading yesterday, Tim Cook saying, there's no good excuse why we're not setting the programs in place, you know, in the organizations, and whether that is done consciously or subconsciously, those are the things that we have got to be conscious on in terms of putting the programs as an organization. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you very much. I can tell you it was absolutely deliberate. It wasn't easy when we come to our example, because there's always good reasons why things can't happen. But I think if the general environment system has a very good appetite to genuinely want to make the change, then you'll find the solutions behind it. And they're not easy, they don't always happen quickly, but at least it's deliberate, it's planned, and so on. Veronica, maybe I can bring you in here and say, do you think we're making genuine progress in reaching some level of equality in the sector?
In the sector, definitely, and congratulations to Vodacom for reaching 50%. And I've noted MTN also doing some stride in appointing women. George, in 2007, I did a study with Miraka, ICT Miraka, looking at women that are entering and leaving the industry. The numbers were high, you know, and I can certainly say that it has changed. However, we have the gap in the procurement space. Now that I run my own business, I left corporate to go and start my own business. And we realized that women businesses are negatively impacted when it comes to procurement. We come from COVID, and mostly women-owned businesses were negatively impacted. When it comes to allocations of project and work, women businesses are usually overlooked even though there is a statement to say we support women in ICT, but when it comes to the real details, the real issues, we are overlooked in most of the time. So those are the areas that we need to look at. Most companies talk about enterprise development, and they recruit women and they report on women, but it's just a database. That database does not translate to money. And you'll find that in terms of the enterprise development, it's just the skilling that company, but no business is being allocated. And I'll also tell you where's the challenge is because most enterprise development business unit is outside the core business. They are unable to influence the operation in terms of bringing in these women. We have trained them, we have prepared them, and they are ready to do business with you. That doesn't happen. So to answer your questions, yes, we have seen some changes in terms of women representation, but the most important part, which is in the procurement, there's still a challenge.
Thank you for that. I'm going to stay with you for a little bit because you've touched on the topic here around you've left the corporate world, got your own business, it's smelling a lot like entrepreneurship, and I want to be very specific. Do you think that as an entrepreneur, is it a lot more difficult to raise funding, as an example, as a woman?
Yeah, I mean, I've been raising funding for 3 years. 3 years, and I'll tell you, I mean, in South Africa, I'm not sure about other countries, you can approach the developmental funding institutions. The process takes long. By the time they attend to you, you have lost an opportunity. That's one. And as a woman, because we don't do well in terms of networking, we cannot phone who can phone that to get your thing. And I had a project whereby I was angry then. I just randomly sent an email to a minister to say, I've been waiting for this institution to attend to my needs. They are not. And when the minister approached them, that's when they started looking at my application. It has not been finalized. That's one. And the second thing is that, remember, you're looking at me, I don't have what they call skin in the game. They are looking for 10%, skin in the game. and you ask yourself, where do I get that 10% skin in the game? That's your commercial banks. Then you start now approaching private equity. Private equity, it will be male, and when they come, they dilute your company. So you are no longer a black-owned company. So there are a lot of gaps in terms of raising funding. Most funders, they don't understand our business, and they throw in so many technical terms and funding terms that we are not even aware of. Yes, it is our responsibility to learn if you want to get into that space, but if you are an entrepreneur, you probably have a good idea. You probably know how you're going to make money, but you don't have off-takers. How do we then protect yourself? Because the industry is shaped differently from other industries. So those are the issues that I personally had experience in my business.
So it's real, right? It's not, some of the things are in play, some of the programs are in play, but the application and the practical way of navigating is creating these challenges. So I think it's real.
It is.
Thank you for that. Kuliwe, maybe I can ask you, what would the benefits be in terms of really having diversity in the workplace? Could you highlight some of them?
It's broadening thinking, innovation, strategic thinking, and that diversity doesn't only talk to women, it talks to diversity in the workspace in terms of youth and in terms of various demographics that brings to the table different forms of thinking and innovation. And we have seen, during COVID, number of countries that have been successful, in the implementation and managing, the COVID, being women. So it is without a doubt that bringing diversity in the boardroom, enhances and stimulates bringing different mindset, different thinking from the different groups. So we have to encourage that, and I think I'm lucky being in a software AG, being the MD, being able to put in place, the transformation And the representation that you are talking about, it's something that we are implementing, having, astute young people in our organizations that are driving innovation, and they are actually taking us to task and, asking difficult questions, because in the age of millennials, it's really critical to ensure that you have that inclusion. I mean, we listened to the youngster who was speaking here earlier today. He said, give us a chance. And bringing that diversity and new form of thinking becomes really critical in terms of the mindset of the organization.
You just get the best outcome, don't you, if you've got many more ingredients that actually contribute to the solution. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you so much. Wenisa, I'm going to be a little unfair here and come back to you. And assuming that you could put yourself in a man's shoes, in your opinion, do you think that it's a cause for concern for men, equality?
It's actually, I'm glad you asked that, because it's something, that's a conversation I'm really passionate about. I think, with a lot of women finding their voice in the sector, a lot of women are quite progressive. I personally would be concerned as a man. I mean, there's like stereotypes, and men are not having the conversation. So if women are going to, take over the boardroom chairs, then where does it leave the traditional guy? And for me, that's a big conversation that I think that men need to have. I think that there's room for men to talk about, what are some of the stereotypical conversations that we've had through all of these years, and are we still like hunters, and must we be this, and the things that our parents and grandparents and everybody told us, we should be. You can still, and I know this is now a little bit to the extreme, but you can still go into a toy shop, and as parents, we still insist on buying our kids gender-type playthings. Boys get cars and guns, and girls get dolls and prams, and I'm just sometimes wondering, are we asking enough questions of ourselves about our stereotyping, and whether it's gender equality or some of the other conversations? I just think that there's a greater conversation that needs to be had. So while I can't definitively say, yes, I think, men, or I can't speak on behalf of men, I do think that there's room for men to start talking to themselves, at least as a beginning, and then maybe have a greater conversation about their roles and what their own futures are going to look like.
Excellent, thank you for that. I talk to myself a lot, so maybe I'm on the right track, for different reasons, I guess. No, but thanks very much for that, and I do think that we've got to be open and transparent about this kind of stuff, otherwise you'll end up in the victim category of how did this happen to whoever. Just conscious of time, maybe I'm going to go closing comments and remarks. Kuli, can I start with you?
Yes, and I think as we continue to talk about diversity and inclusion and representation of women, we've seen in the tech space a number of companies, if I mention the OEMs, employing and having women leaders at the helm. Remember the time I was the head of Oracle, and we've seen now Microsoft, Cisco, appointing women leaders. We have also got to be conscious that we manage what we call a glass cliff. We've talked about breaking the glass ceiling, etc. But now it has been really prevalent to hire women in those positions where the risk of failure is high. And we do all the work, and then a man will come in and sweep in and be successful. So we have to really be conscious when we bring women in this position, we are really leveling the playing ground, both for men and women, to achieve that true equality. Otherwise, we will be playing lip service and ticking the box of representation, which is actually not sustainable. And as well, as we come up with these statistics, I hope for you within Vodacom, as what we do also as software monitoring mechanisms and policies. That's what we are talking about in terms of the account lenders at the programs to monitor these policies, that how successful are these women in these organizations, so that there's a pool that comes through in terms of support. Otherwise, they will stay for a year, and you say, we have tried, you tick a box. and then you hire a man afterwards. We have got to be conscious, both women and men, to address that. Otherwise, you will see many women leaving corporate and going to enterprise, which is actually key, but we never asked, what's the reason? No, I put you in that position, but afterwards, what has happened to that woman in that position? So next year, I'm going to ask you the question, out of that 50%, how many have stayed on, and how many are accelerating to those core decision making?
And we've got a big audience, so I'm on the spot here. We'll have to report back officially. It's on record, right? The good thing is that we are deliberate about it, so I'm quite comfortable with that. Thank you so much for that. Very insightful, and thank you. Veronica, maybe I can go to you.
Just to add on Koliwe's comment, I think the industry is harsh on women, and we punish women more than we punish men. I think there's an expectation that because you are in that position, therefore you should be able to do miracles, which is also unfair. You know, in our industry, we have seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions. We've been talking about consolidation and everything. And you look from outside, you see how deals are being made. You know, it's this company that is owned by men buying this company. When are we bringing women into that space as well? You know, because there's an opportunity for ownership as well. And my ask is that as we think about this project, if you think about somebody to acquire your business, if you think of consolidating, bring a woman into that space. That's my ask. Thank you.
Excellent. A great request and a fair one, at least. Absolutely. Juanita?
Thanks, George. I'm going to say something that I know that you guys are doing already, and there's an old saying that goes that if you're not intentionally including, you're unintentionally excluding. So exactly like what you guys are doing at Vodacom, and I have to congratulate you, and I work closely with you guys, so I know how passionate, you know, and this is a culture, you know. Inclusivity is a culture. It gets drilled down from the top. It gets spoken about. There's practical plans put in place to leverage. But I'm going to just close with that comment again. If you're not intentionally including, you're unintentionally excluding. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to finish off with a little comment, is that I just don't know how women do it, to be honest. I think, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not saying it because we on this discussion and panel, but and I'm a segment of one, so I'm not picking a side here, but I think gents in general are quite linear, where women can do a lot of stuff at the same time. Like, I mean a lot of stuff at the same time, multitasking. I think we can eat biltong and use the remote control of the TV at the same time. And of course, I'm not putting us in a category, but I do think that diversity and those differences is what, if embraced properly, brings so much to the table. And it talks to that word equality, right? It's not about one being more than the other. It's about all those ingredients coming together. So thanks very much for sharing. I think that's the end of our session. Really appreciate it. And I'm not sure what's next, but this is the end of our conversation. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for that gendered perspective on the industry, and so amazing to actually only have had a panel full of women who spoke so openly about their experiences. And you're right, George. I think a lot of women don't know how we do it either, but we just know that it has to get done at the end of the day. So really great to hear those perspectives, and I really appreciate the honesty with which the panelists spoke. On that note, it officially brings us to the end of our first session for today. After the lunch break, of course, you'll be breaking out into the various streams. I know you're all very organized people, so by now you know exactly which stream you want to be part of. If you do have some questions, second guesses, you can just head onto the program that will give exact details of what is happening in those afternoon sessions. Before we go anywhere, let me say thank you to George, maybe not you specifically, George, but because you're here and you are from Vodacom, thank you to Vodacom for having sponsored our tea break and the lunch that we're about to receive. And yes, you have been saved. You don't have to do a Pantsula move to be able to get in, but we might be able to work something out for dinner. On that note, please have a lovely lunch, and the sessions then will reconvene again. And this is from, we'll make that 2:30. The program says 2 o'clock, but okay, no, we're starting at 2 o'clock, so please don't take your time. Walk fast, chew quickly, and be back at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Conext 2022, the annual gathering of Digital Council Africa members, partners, and stakeholders. This year is iconic Cape Town, South Africa. The Digital Council embraces the extraordinary possibilities that the digital economy holds for the African continent. The Digital Council Africa's members have one thing in common. We believe that digital transformation is about putting people first. To our sponsors and partners, thank you for participating.